Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for your quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the show, let's discuss a simple question. If the American economy is generating record levels of wealth, why do so many workers feel like they're falling behind? As America approaches the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, it is worth asking that question as it goes far beyond politics, economics, or business. It's a question about the kind of country we want to be. A recent federal government report highlighted a striking reality. Labor's share of economic output has fallen to the lowest level ever recorded, while corporate profit margins remain near historic highs. In simpler terms, workers are receiving a smaller piece of the economic pie at the same time that corporations are keeping a larger piece for themselves. That statistic alone helps explain a lot of what we see around us. It helps explain why consumer confidence often seems disconnected from economic headlines and stock market records. It helps explain why workers report feeling stressed about their finances, even when unemployment remains relatively low. And it helps explain why so many people look around and wonder how an economy that appears to be so successful on paper can feel so challenging in everyday life. To understand why this matters, we need to understand what economists mean when they talk about labor's share of the economy. Every year, workers, companies, investors, and entrepreneurs collectively create trillions of dollars of economic value. The question is how that value gets distributed. Labor's share measures how much of that output goes to workers through wages, salaries, and benefits, and the remainder flows to profits, investments, and owners of capital. And for much of the post-World War II era, there was an expectation that when productivity increased, workers would benefit as well. If companies became more efficient, if technology improved, if profits rose, workers could reasonably expect their pay and living standards to rise alongside those gains. But that relationship has weakened considerably over the past several decades. Today, productivity still does continue to improve. Companies continue to become more efficient. We've seen technology advance rapidly, and corporate profits are continuing to grow. Yet many workers feel as though they're running harder just to stay in place. Costs continue to rise across the entire economy: housing, healthcare, childcare costs, education, insurance, energy, food. These costs are all elevated throughout the entire country. And even workers receiving annual raises often discover that those increases barely can keep pace with the realities of daily life. So the result is a growing disconnect between economic success at the corporate level and economic security at the household level. And importantly, this doesn't happen by accident. The growing divide between corporate profits and workers' pay is not the result of a single policy or a single election or just an individual business decision. It's the cumulative result of thousands of decisions made over decades. It reflects changes in tax policy, changes in labor law. Especially, it reflects declining union membership and reduced worker bargaining power. It reflects globalization and outsourcing. It reflects the increasing financialization of the economy and executive compensation systems that heavily reward stock performance and margin expansion. And finally, it reflects a corporate culture that often celebrates cost reductions while treating wage growth as something that must be constantly managed and constrained. In so many organizations today, reducing labor costs is viewed as a sign of management excellence. Increasing profit margins is viewed as evidence of strategic success. And boosting shareholder returns is considered the primary obligation. And yet workers are often told they're the company's most important asset. These ideas are increasingly difficult to reconcile. We're also entering a period where these questions have become more important because of artificial intelligence. Leaders are investing billions of dollars into AI systems, automation, and productivity-enhancing technologies. In theories, these tools should generate enormous value. They should help organizations become more productive, more innovative, and more competitive. But the critical question is this: who will benefit from those gains? If AI allows a company to generate significantly more output with fewer workers, will the workers left share in that prosperity? Will their wages rise? Work become more flexible? Will employees gain more opportunities? Or will the majority of these new gains simply flow to shareholders, executives, and investors? History suggests that the answer to that question is not automatic. The distribution of economic gains is ultimately a choice. That brings us to a broader conversation about capitalism itself. There are some who see statistics like these and conclude that capitalism is just fundamentally broken. Others would argue that capitalism remains the greatest engine of wealth creation ever developed. And both perspectives probably contain some elements of truth. Capitalism has undeniably created extraordinary prosperity. It's fueled innovation, entrepreneurship, technological advances, and rising standards of living from billions of people. But capitalism alone just doesn't guarantee fairness. It doesn't guarantee that gains will be broadly or widely shared. It doesn't guarantee economic dignity. It doesn't guarantee that workers will automatically receive an equitable portion of the value that they help create. Those outcomes depend on institutions, policies, incentives, morals, and leadership choices. In many ways, the central challenge facing America in the coming decades is not about should we abandon capitalism. It's really about the challenge of reforming it. Can we preserve the innovation, investment, and entrepreneurial energy that capitalism creates, while also ensuring more workers can participate in the rewards? Can we craft an economy that rewards both capital and labor? And could we create a system where success is measured not only by stock prices and profit margins, but also by the economic security of working families and their overall quality of life, both inside and outside of work? For HR leaders, this conversation should not be viewed as just abstract economics. HR sits at the intersection of how organizations distribute opportunity and reward. Compensation strategies matter here, and benefits matter. Career development, internal mobility, pay transparency, equity, these are all important. HR leaders should be asking whether productivity gains are translating into meaningful improvements for workers. They should be advocating for compensation philosophies that recognize the contributions of employees, and not simply just market dynamics and pressures. And they should be helping organizations think more intentionally about how success should be shared. And for business leaders, there's an opportunity to rethink what responsible leadership looks like. While we all realize that profitability, performance, and shareholders do matter, we must also recognize that sustainable success requires a workforce that believes the system is working for them. Organizations can explore profit-sharing programs, can expand employee ownership opportunities. They can align executive compensation more closely with workforce outcomes, and they can invest in wages, development, and economic mobility rather than viewing labor solely as a cost center. And for all of us individuals, there's a role to play as well. We can ask tougher questions in our organizations about how value is created and distributed, and we can support policies that strengthen economic opportunity. We can reward companies that treat their workers fairly, and we can engage in conversations about compensation, fairness, and economic dignity without immediately reducing every discussion into politics and talking points. Because at the core, this is not a political common issue, it's a human issue. And as we prepare to celebrate 250 years since the founding of the United States, we should remember that the promise of America was never simply about creating wealth. It was about creating opportunity. It was about expanding freedom and building a society where ordinary people could improve their lives through their work, their efforts, their contributions. The question facing us today is whether our economic system is still delivering on that promise for enough people. Corporate America has never been richer. Corporate profits are near record levels. Technological capabilities are advancing faster than ever before. The challenge is making sure that prosperity reaches more of the people who help create it, because the real measure of economic success is not how much wealth a nation generates, it's how many of its people get to share in it. That's it for the show today. A big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. Be sure to subscribe to the HR Happy Hour Network on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.